Good morning, folks. I've unplugged one of my cameras. I'll just hide it and we'll use the main one. There we go. Hi, thanks for popping in. Good morning. I've got a recursive loop. Excellent. Let me just load up the music library. Thanks for dropping in. I have a couple of hours this morning. It is the kids' last day at school, so they're coming home after lunch. So I thought I'd get some game dev done in this morning and just use it as an opportunity to show you where I'm up to with the project currently, and then make a few hours progress on the thing I've been doing, which is trying to make mobs in the game work in a slightly more generic way. And if this is your first time tuning in, hello, welcome. This is a channel where I mostly focus on playing other people's games and giving feedback, but I've been working on my own game over the past year with the help of someone from the game maker community called Golem, who is a very good game maker engineer and has been building lots of different pieces of, well, lots of different libraries for Game Maker, which this game is becoming a little bit of a showcase of various libraries for that reason. Gleb's here. Hey. So yeah, we've recently just done a bunch of changes to. I'll show the game for people that don't know it. It's a platformer that is kind of in the vein of Spelunky. It's very like it's very much about like picking objects up and chucking them around and taking them to different places. So I've sort of jokingly been telling people it's an immersive sim pretending to be a platformer, because that's very much the vein. I think I'm the sort of person that's quite driven by hubris. So when people moan about a genre and go, "Oh, there's no good platformers," it kind of makes me want to make one. But I also liked this idea of mixing the room drafting from blueprints into a kind of more action focused game. So that's kind of where this idea started over a year ago. And now we've got Spelunky blueprints where you sort of build a Metroidvania, and a very broken menu here at the moment, so you can't see it very well. But yeah, you build a Metroidvania during a run of the game, and all the time you're kind of cooking for characters. And the cooking theme was kind of in there from the beginning, but it became the main theme a few months ago when I needed to sort of scope down the game. And that's really helped with lots of other things and to sort of focus the design a bit. And it just means we've got lots of reasons to like go all around the level and not just stay in one place. So people who joined recently will have seen me making this door that kind of builds the red rooms, the scary rooms. That's the least bad thing it can build, is just this little fungus pop. I did the best commit message ever the other day, which was I fixed the spinach physics. I'm trying to have lots of multi-use objects in this game, so this is a big piece of spinach that you can use to cook certain things, but you can also use it as a Legend of Zelda lifty leaf. But I fixed the physics on it, so it's got this kind of bespoke floaty thing it does, which the other objects don't do. And yeah, you can see there's like this little highlight on objects when you walk past them now to show you what you're going to pick up if you press B, which is nice. We've needed that for a while. It's quite an object-dense game. And there's items like these tables in the background, which are more just like clutter that you can break, but you can't pick them up. So that highlight also helps to differentiate those. I also did, in the last week, I did a bunch of like genericizing of like objects and how they break when you throw them and the debris that comes out. I'm still having some, you won't be able to see it, but there's a little bit of difficulty there where that item is highlighted, but it doesn't pick up unless I move around a lot. So I'm going to have to come back to that. I think it's because it's still registering these bits of furniture as stuff that could be picked up and then skipping over the thing I'm actually trying to pick up. But I'll come back to that. And then a recent system addition as well is this, which is like in the engine it's called a gizmo, but it's basically any. Let me see if I can spawn a milk bottle without crashing the game. there's a series of these gizmos which are like blocks that you can put something into, like that milk, and then you can turn it into something else. So this is kind of for the middle of the game where you're getting asked for slightly more advanced things, and you can process one thing and turn it into another. Oh, this wizard actually wants some cheese, so let's give him some cheese. And then he gives you a card which would give you another room. And we haven't built that menu yet, but the way it will eventually work is when you see one of these room cards, you'll click on it and it will give you a choice of 3 rooms to go in your deck. And then when you go to open a door, then now there's a chance that that room will be there. I've just added the abattoir room yesterday, which is like, you can see there's a new gizmo here. And it's already being activated because that meat crate is bouncing up and down on it, which is one of my favorite little... since I made these gizmos and buttons, one of my favorite little system things is that so you've got mobs and then you've got items, and items can sort of bounce on those buttons and trigger them as well. So you can do stuff like that, which is kind of funny and silly. So yeah, this is a meat grinder. It requires 2 meat objects, and the goat can be put in it as well. And then when you activate it, it turns the 2 objects into a ball of like processed meat that you can make to make burgers and meatballs and stuff like that. So the game is going to be full of little interactions like that. But the gizmos are really like a mid-game thing, because earlier on in the game, people are just going to be like, get me a carrot. And then you go and get them like 1 carrot and they're fine. And then later on in the game, you'll start needing to get these more complex things. But yeah, it's designed in such a way that you don't really need to use the goat, but that's a shortcut if you feel evil. And I probably need to give items a weight so that not everything can be used to bounce on a button like that, but at the moment they're all just treated as being the same, which is kind of fun. So I'm just going to run around the world with my ball of ground meat. This isn't on the list of stuff that he eats yet, which it should be, because the big scary red door only eats meat objects. It doesn't eat goats or that new meat item yet. I think this is going to crash now. It keeps crashing. Yeah, sorry. Gleb, I didn't log that bug, but we're getting a crash there, which I should have logged in our Discord dev forum, but because it's kind of slowing down the iteration cycle a little bit, but I have been like working in very short bursts, and that means that I've not been reporting stuff like that. So yeah, the other thing I wanted to show for folks that have been following the game but haven't seen this yet is I've done a bunch of like little UX tweaks to the cauldron. And what I'm trying to do is just go through the game and take things that you do quite frequently and just make sure that they feel and look good, and that it's obvious that they're supposed to be a big part of the game. Because this cauldron, we're going to use it quite a lot. We use this to combine 2 items to make another item. And but previously it was quite hard to see, and using it was a little bit underwhelming. So the way that it works now, you can ding it, you get a little bit of screen shake and it rings like a bell. Which doesn't really make physical sense because it's got water in it, so it shouldn't really ring like that, but we don't care. And then it previously had an issue where when you had 1 item in it, you could see what the item was, but now it's got this kind of plus question mark to tell you that it needs 1 more item. And you can also cancel the cook by whacking it and the ingredient falls back out, which you couldn't do before, which is quite helpful, especially seeing as things can accidentally fall in the cauldron. You can also see there's that, oh, I whacked the carrot out of that more extreme and put this particle effect on this sprite so that it looks like the little prompt is appearing in the steam. But yeah, so now we've got, here's your ingredient 1. The cauldron is waiting for a second ingredient. I go and get a carrot and I put a carrot in there, and now we've got a vegetable soup, and it sort of stops for a second and then pings out. And luckily this item doesn't have like a fragility rating, because if it had, it would have pinged down there and then shattered immediately, which could be quite funny. So I might make it work like that and just not put the cauldron in such a precarious place. Yeah, that's kind of, that's how that works. So most of the recipes in the game are just 2 items. There are some recipes you make by using a gizmo, and some recipes are literally just, some of the characters will be just like, I want a bag of trash, or I want a carrot, and you just go and find it and bring it to them. So there's a lot of kind of Metroidvania type backtracking, but I try and make it interesting by making sure that the rooms change on the way back. So one of the things I have been doing, and this has been a feature for a long time that you might not have seen because it doesn't show up until you've played the game for like 10-20 minutes. These little sprouts that come out of the ground, these appear in the green rooms, and every time you build a new room they add a tick, so when you come back there's a chance that they've grown up into a full plant. And that's a way of that. I mean, that's not the only thing I'm going to do to like solve this problem, but what I want to do is have quite a few things where if you build a big level you go all the way to the other side of it and then you come back, there's stuff that has advanced time-wise on the way back, so the kind of Metroidvania backtracking is a bit more interesting. And what I'm going to do with these is when they've ticked all the way up and they grow into a full plant, currently they're just like random flowers like a bluebell or a poppy or a sunflower, but I'm going to make them slightly more bizarre things. Like I might go all the way over here and then come back, and then when I come back past this sprout I find out it's grown into like a big bomb, and I can pick the bomb and light it, and that means I can like then use the level and look around for the bit with the most treasure in and blow that bit up and get some extra gold on the way back. Or I might find a plant that has grown into a key and I get a key, and that's great because I've just like finished the level and run out of keys, and now I've got one more key so I can go back and find that other door and open another door. So the plant growth is a way of kind of a way of adding some interest to the backtracking, and giving the green rooms a unique feel as well, where they do feel kind of like they're based on growth, but it's not based on actual real game time. It's based on how many rooms you've built since that sprout spawned. So you know they only tick when you build a new room, and they have to like store the tick. So it's kind of like because there's a culling system that Gleb built so that all of this can exist, right? So not all of this stuff is being simulated at once. They're not actually running code when you're off the screen. So what they do is they store how many rooms were built when they were first created, and then when you find them again and they're kind of unculled and loaded in, they check the difference, and then they advance based on that. I'm just seeing what kind of said in the chat. So I've just moved the chat behind my head. Let me just fix that. You could have a food-eating plant that eats when you're carrying... Yeah, exactly. That's fun. That's kind of... That really ties into one of the things I'm generally trying to do in this game, and when we get onto the mobs in the minute, you'll see that. But I'm trying to make it so that a lot of the mob interactions aren't necessarily about the mobs directly trying to hurt you, but they're more to do with the mobs being irritating or, like, ruining your business. Because that makes it... That kind of ties more into the fantasy of you being a chef, right? And this being like a wacky, massive castle restaurant thing that you're building. So examples would be like, early in the game we'll use the basic stuff that you would expect from, you know, you see the game, you see like Dungeon Meshy type thing, Battle Chef Brigade, you see a big buff chef with a big like hammer spoon. Like, what do you expect from that? Okay, well, I kind of expect to be like killing the vermin that would be in my kitchen, like cockroaches and rats and stuff. So I might make those characters, but instead of them being things that actively attack the player, maybe they like run along and pick up food and like run off with it, you know, that kind of stuff, or they just like eat certain objects. So I want to build a mob system that allows for that and is less about direct combat, but has some direct combat in it. But it's much more about like irritating stuff, messing with your business. Because I think that will be funnier as well and will add more emergence. Because these types of games like Spunky and Noita, I called it Spunky, Spelunky and Noita are, you know, like I kind of joked, ImSim platformers. They're all about having like lots and lots of emergence. And you get that from having lots of orthogonal design and lots of like entities that don't behave in the same way and that have like strange, unusual things they do under different conditions. So the task now is to make a kind of generic mob system where I can have lots of functions that I can reuse in different ways for different mobs, and then, you know, some edge cases where a mob has its unique code, but mostly it's like you know, them all doing variations of the same thing but in different contexts. But yeah, I this kind of red door that eats stuff and spawns a scary red room was a bit of a turning point as well, because it was like, okay, we can turn feeding things into like a broader theme of the game. And okay, yeah, we're trying to get recipes to these diners that are sitting around as our main goal and our main way of earning money and earning the progression stars that get us to kind of complete the game. But if we can have other things that need to be fed for different reasons, like that scary door, then it will start to feel really, really rich because everything is pointing in the same direction. I don't have the code yet to actually cook this chicken because this big chicken object hasn't been properly... So this person won't accept it because it's raw. I need to make the raw version and the cooked version look more different, but that was all new content that I haven't done everything with yet. There's Figgy! What's up, Figgy? Bon appetit! Oh, Figgy. When you, if you hit a customer or blow up the ground underneath them, you get a little thumbs down. That's what it does at the moment. This is a little quality of life thing I did that looks cool, but is completely meaningless. You can see there's all of these little bits of fungus that spread out from the red room and start going in your rooms. You can see it here. There's a little bit of spores in the soil. And that might seem like unnecessary polish, but it keeps me going. And also I think it's kind of one of the pillars of this game. One of the things that I got from our earliest round of playtesting that people were really kind of proud, like interested in and impressed by very early on, you know, 6 months ago, was that the game world felt really alive. And so, you know, that is one of the driving things. So occasionally there's things that feel like a bit of superfluous polish that I shouldn't be doing at this stage, but I think making the game world feel alive is important. I think so I think that this room would normally have diners in, but I think they're not spawning because I've already got too many. I'm not sure why we're not getting diners in this room. What happened there? That was weird. Are they spawning behind the wall or something? Might have a layer naming issue. Oh, this is the library. The books are spawning behind the wall. So if anyone missed it, Figgy, the character I blew up, is one of Gleb's library mascots. Spicy Bread, I'm glad you like the scary room. Yeah, it's cool, right? And before this style was like a thing I developed very early on in the game because I like fungus apocalypses like Caelid and Elden Ring and stuff like that. It's kind of creepy to me. And the thing that I like about this is kind of one of my creative goals of this game is to try and make the scary bits as scary as possible while still being like almost appropriate for a kid. You know, there's not any gore, but it's kind of, it's still scary stuff. We've got a big scary mouth door. It's kind of, my reference points for that would be like Adventure Time and like 80s fantasies films like Labyrinth and Neverending Story and stuff like that. And that's not because like I don't want the game to get censored or anything. I just think that's an interesting creative constraint. And oh, that's a behavior I need to fix. I don't know why the mobs do that. Do we have layer merging enabled now? Oh, I don't know. I will have a look later. Room loader config script. I'm going to put myself a note for that because if I start messing with that this morning, it's not going to be very interesting. Kinda, we do actually have a system for reviews, like characters sending semi-random little Yelp reviews to your pause menu when you do certain things. I haven't hooked any content into it yet, but it will be in the game eventually, which is quite neat. Fancy load, Gleb, I missed your question from earlier. How's the new fancy loading? Yeah, it's working great. That's a object I haven't finished yet. I'll quickly fix that because Yeah, so what Gleb's referring to in the chat is Gleb just edited some of the room loading script so that when the rooms are loaded in, it can pick like any of the doors in the room and orient the room to bring you in from that door. So you're going to see the same rooms come out of your deck, but there might be a room where there's like one entrance that is better than the other one, and you might have a 50-50 chance to get the entrance that brings you out next to the treasure chest or the entrance that brings you out in the annoying place. So we're going to get a lot of variety out of that. So kind of what the game does, if you've ever played something like Rogue Legacy, where it's a roguelike, but it's made out of chunks, we're taking all the chunks of a roguelike, turning them into a deck of cards, and then turning the building of the level into a strategic choice by the player. So it's kind of, yes, it's procedurally generated, but we're putting the procedurality into the player's hands as a game mechanic, which is probably like a very pretentious way of just talking about the room drafting in Blueprints. But it ends when you mash two things together that don't go together normally, you end up with something dramatically different. So although we're using that room drafting mechanic, it's like, okay, the room drafting in Blueprints is like a strategic, slow, thinky board game where you're effectively like looking at a map from above and putting the rooms down, and then you're also able to walk around and look inside them, which is like another layer of the game. Here, we've got gravity, we've got like those kind of gravitational relationships in real time between the rooms, and that's kind of what this has always been built around. I just need to quickly fix this. Being held equals false. Tell this is ancient code. It's not formatted properly. That should fix the gift boxes. I will just quickly commit that. And then we'll get on with working on the mobs for a couple of hours. Yeah, the gift boxes in the earlier prototype, they were like things that you paid for, like the shop in Spelunky, but I'm taken out anything where you spend gold on a run, because the gold is kind of our points here. It's our main thing. Hey Stanley, he said it seems to run at much higher FPS now. Did you optimize the stream? Oh, yeah, I don't know. I moved house. I have had a new internet service provider recently, but I don't know. I mean, it still goes down occasionally. So this is our generic mob that I've been working on, who's called _mob at the moment, just to keep him at the top of the spawn tree. And then I've got a script of mob behaviors here, which may eventually just go into the mob because it's the only thing that uses them. And what have we got? We've got a couple of generic variables that all of the mobs use. I was thinking we should have a max life as well. So what we'll do is at the start, we'll set its life to its max life. And then we'll say I've been making macros as well. So one of the benefits of working with Gleb on this is that, yeah, like I hire Gleb to do bits for me and to build the bits of the game that I'm not good at building. Or they don't need those because they're macros, I see. But also, it kind of works as a form of coaching. So 6 months ago, I didn't know how to write functions. I didn't know anything about constructors. I still don't really understand constructors that well, although I can kind of use them in a copy-paste collage-y way. But using macros and functions, I'm much more comfortable with now. And seeing someone else add things to your project and then like understanding it in the context is very, very different from like understanding it from a tutorial, I've found. Right, okay. So we've made a macro so we can just quickly check if the character is hurt. So I'm just going to take you through everything that's here, and then I'm going to make a very small change which basically makes the character always run after they've been hurt. So if we go and like whack the gnome, then they'll start like looking like they're panicking and running around. And remember that with like I remember reading Derek Yu's book about Spelunky, and the shopkeeper, when he's angry, looks like he's doing something quite sophisticated, but he's just like randomly jumping around, attacking in a particular pattern that ends up looking like it's meaningful. So we're trying to use that as much as possible. So for example, I've got a macro called always run. And when always run is run, it just turns the walk speed into the run speed. And that means that that character will never go back to their normal walk speed. And whenever we tell them to walk in a direction, they'll run instead. Yeah, Gleb, that's a good idea. I'll get back to you on that. Yeah. So yeah, what I want to do is make the character check for when they're hurt, and then after they're hurt, they will always run. And that won't be every mob, but it's just kind of an example of what I can do with the functions and macros we've set up so far. Vision distance doesn't do anything yet. I'm not sure if we even need that, so I'm going to take it out for now rather than fill this with variables that don't do anything. Speed-based stuff, like how powerful does it jump? I'm still not sure why it's doing that jumping in the air behavior that we saw. And then it's got a set of sound effects. It's got a function called set mob sprites, which is down the bottom here. And what this does is it takes the name of the current sprite, like the basic sprite for the mob. So this will be called sprite underscore gnome. And then it adds underscore jump, underscore held, underscore hurt, etc. to it, and tries to find like a mini library of those other extensions of the sprite name. And if it can't find them, it does a fallback. So for example, you know, all of these, if it can't, they've all got a fallback. So if it can't find a jump sprite, it will just use the move sprite. If it can't find the held sprite, it will just use the move sprite. If it can't find the attack sprite, it will just use the move sprite. So I'm trying to do this so that if I call the jump sprite from a generic function that should work with every mob, and it doesn't have a jump sprite, it will just use the move sprite. But if it has the jump sprite, it will use sprite underscore name underscore, or sprite underscore mob underscore name underscore jump. And then this one, for example, it can do emotes, and the main use of that at the moment is it has a behavior called, what is it called? Oh, this is unique to the gnome actually, so it's only in here. So it has a check to see if it's stuck in the gap. Where is it? Yeah, this is the only bit that's unique to the gnome right now. There's a couple of things here that are unique to the gnome, and when I've got the generic mob working right, I'll take these out and put them in the gnome version. So this checks every half a second to see if it's stuck in a gap and on the ground, and then if it's in that situation and it's stuck in a gap, it will do one of these things. It will either try and jump out of the gap, it will do an emote called protest, which is basically it will switch to a particular predefined sprite and make a sound effect from the library of sound effects that we picked for it. It will go or something like that. Or it will try and do this mob smash block behavior, which it normally uses for mining gold. So again, this is an example behavior. This won't be in all mobs, but I've made a mob smash block function, which they can all run, which is basically like, look for a block with this sprite on it every 0.2 seconds, and look one tile to the ahead of you and no tiles below, right? So that's what this is doing. And like every 5 times a second, it's looking for a gold block right in front of it. Twice a second, it's looking for one in front and below. And every 3 seconds, it's looking for one directly below it. So it's likely to pass over blocks and not mine directly down. And this mob smash block behavior, we can use it for the gnome to give it the impression that it's mining for gold. So when I talked earlier about having mobs that are just kind of getting in your way and being annoying, this guy is a sprite that I made way earlier into the project, and I'm probably not going to use it in this way. What I'm more likely to do is make it look a little bit evil, like more like a goblin or like a grey dwarf. If you've ever seen like Ronya, the robber's daughter, if you've seen grey dwarves in like Scandinavian folklore, make him look a little bit more evil. And then he's like a treasure goblin from Diablo or Golden Axe, and he's like mining the level and taking the stuff, and if you chase him and like whack him, you can get the gold back out of his bag. That's the kind of thing I'm expecting for this guy, rather than him just like milling about being a neutral, because that's not as interesting or fun. But this behavior is helpful for that, so we can have him like go around looking. At the moment he's not really looking for the blocks, he's just checking for them as he randomly passes, and then breaking them. But this mob smash block behavior, we can use this for other things. You know, we can have like a big spiky ball character that bounces around and it just smashes certain types of blocks it bounces into, or like a big termite that eats certain blocks because they're supposed to be made of wood. I've also got cheese blocks in the level, so we could have like a mouse that eats the cheese. We've got these just solid cheese blocks. So there's all of those things that we can do just with that. But what it doesn't have is any sort of AI to look for the specific thing it's looking for. So I will be doing that, and I want to have like for example, a situation where we can check for a particular block, and then if the character sees that block, they sort of run towards it. Because one of the things I wanted to do was, where's that scary key? This was a sprite I drew for a relic before, but I was thinking of actually using this as a little character. And you know, previously you saw the red door and you feed it and it opens a big scary red room. I want to have a little character that's like a scary red key, and it looks for normal doors, flies into them and makes a red room. So it kind of wastes your doors and breaks your level up if you don't like whack it or put it out of business. So making it so that the mobs can identify an object and try and move towards that, because they don't do that currently, and they sort of look like they know what they're doing. Like, for example, at the moment, this guy, he has where's the other? He has a behavior called wander and turn, which is very generic. But if we look at it, this is just trying to get all of the basic like platformer enemy stuff into one thing. So every 1 second there'll be a 0.1 chance to turn, and then we have a true for will he try and avoid falling. So is this character supposed to appear like an intelligent character that turns at the edge of a ledge, or is there a chance they will dive off a ledge? And then we've got some stuff here which I've commented out because I was trying to fix that bug where it just flies up in the air, which I can't quite work out what's happening there. I mean, maybe just limiting the kind of the vertical speed, but I would like to know why they're flying up in the air like that, rather than just like trying to hack it out. So I will be looking into that a little bit more. He's also got a behavior called climbing jump, which if we look over here, it is okay, so we're checking every 1 second to see if we're not stuck in a gap and we're on the ground, then every 1 second and a 10% chance to do this thing, which is basically look for a platform to jump up onto and then jump up there. So this is a behavior that will give to certain types of characters to make them feel a little bit more either kind of athletic, acrobatic, or kind of more intelligent characters, because there might be some characters that just like hurtle forwards and fall off ledges, and we don't want them all to do that. So we've got that, and then the other thing I wanted to add was if hurt, because this is going to make the character feel more believable as an NPC rather than just a monster. And particularly if we were to have this gnome in the game, that's kind of one of the differentiators where we might have them sort of behave differently from like a slime or something. A slime might not care about self-preservation, so it's going to fall off ledges, it's going to not run away if you hit it, that kind of stuff, whereas other characters, we might want that. So I'm just trying to get all of these things into a generic set of functions and macros that are very easy for me to use later on, and which use kind of relatively plain language so I don't forget how they work. Okay, so this guy, so you can see the mining behavior there. It's not perfect. He's destroying blocks that he shouldn't be able to get to, but you can see a little bit of that mining behavior. And to be fair, the actual kind of digging for gold is probably the more sophisticated version of that behavior. If we were going to use it to make like a June worm or something like that, that just needs to mindlessly destroy lots of blocks quite regularly. Whereas this guy needs to look like he's a little bit more sophisticated. So what I want to test is if I hit him, will he start running around like crazy, right? Because that's that thing that you just saw, that if hurt always run, that's quite helpful. Because let's say that I wanted to kill this guy to turn him into a soup or something, and I do that, then he's going to start. That doesn't look like he's going any faster. I don't know why that is. Let me check that hurt actually is working. So max life, okay, life equals max life, fine. Hurt means life is less than max life, that should work. Always run means walk speed gets set to run speed. Okay. And oh, it's because run speed isn't that high, so let's put run speed on 2 and see what happens. It's probably just that the variables aren't distinguishable enough. But yeah, eventually I imagine this guy being kind of grey and sort of disgruntled looking and having little beady red eyes. And as he kind of goes around the level and picks up the gold, he gets he kind of gets a little sack on his back, and then you go and beat him up a few times, and every time you hit him, he sort of loses a proportion of the gold that he has in his bag. You know, that kind of thing. Just classic Golden Axe stuff. Maybe he kind of regens so that you could probably keep doing that and like deliberately farm him. That would be fun. Okay. So I guess what we could do is we can go and look at his start to, again, I'm still just modeling this generic one around a particular character, and then when we've got enough stuff to use, I can put the specific bits into the gnome mob and then start thinking about, okay, what are the generic things I would need for a flying mob, right? So, for example, one of the things I want to be able to do is have mobs that are scared of particular objects, so we can have something like a crow and a scarecrow. So, wander and turn. Let me look at the arguments that go into wander and turn, because what we might be able to have... So if he's not in that kind of I've just been hurt state, and he's not hurt, we do the normal mob wander and turn, and then we do an else if hurt, then we do always run. So we say, okay, we're not turning as often. We want him to look like he's frantically running away, and that means that if you hit him and he starts sprinting around, he's going to run off an edge, and that's fine. So we'll make him, he will try and avoid falling, and he will do ledge dives. Okay. But he's only going to be checking every 3 seconds, so he's probably still going to avoid falling. So what we could do, actually, I think a better way of doing this would be to make him continue to do this at a very regular rate, like every sort of 5 times a second, but make the turn chance really, really low. So it has like a 1% turn chance. So the only time he's usually going to turn is if he detects a ledge. So I think that hurt macro is helpful, because I think this is a kind of case where we would want that to define lots of things about their behavior, because it basically gives you a proxy for, like, has the player just whacked this character? Because if they have, that's like the big, like top branch of the tree of how we want this character to behave differently. And like, bear in mind, this is the most sophisticated game I've made on my own. I've not really ever got a game to a point where I've had to like think about NPC AI. And we're not trying to do anything sophisticated. We're just trying to do like cartoon logic, you know, like. Okay, so it sort of looks like he's speeding up and slowing down, and I'm not sure why that is. Like, kind of weird. Looks like he's limping. It's very funny that he plays the noise as you kill him. Ah, gnome. In you go. What can I say? Figgy just loves to be exploded. Yeah, this is a bit broken up here, the ship. Because we've got like a moving platform when the game doesn't really support it yet. Ah! That demon loved eating that gnome. Okay, so I want to find out why he's doing that sort of... Looks like he's speeding up, slowing down, speeding up, slowing down. If he's held... No, that's not anything. Yeah, the bombs aren't... I haven't revisited how the bombs work for a long time. So they're... I think when an explosion function catches other bombs, it just treats them as a normal item and destroys them, when it should actually tell them to recall the function. Walk speed is 1. He does look... I don't know if... maybe it's just the animation, so let me just change him for a different sprite. Hello, Meat Golem. We've got to put the Meat Golem back in the game at some point. I haven't, but... Oh yeah, I mean, making the bombs work properly isn't an issue. It's just something I haven't done. It's not a lack of knowledge thing. It's just a thing that I've noticed a couple of times and just never got around to doing anything about. I mean, I only rewrote explosions to be a generic function like a month ago. Hello, mob. Yeah, when he's running, he's sort of like speeding up, stopping, speeding up, stopping. I'm not sure what that is. Ah, poor guy. Yeah, and you'll notice that the characters just turn into a piece of meat. They will have some particles, like if you hit a goat a bunch of times, it sort of explodes in a cloud of fluff and then the meat's left behind. They will generally work like that. I think the gnome will have a set of particles which would be like its 2 boots and its hat. But I don't, like I said, I don't want to do any gore, so we need like a cartoony way of turning the character into the object, kind of like Minecraft would do actually. And that just seems like the most sensible way, because you still want the juice, the human bean juice, but you don't want it to be gory, because like I said, that's kind of one of the creative constraints I put on the game. So if the character is hurt, then every 2 seconds I'm going to look at this mob wander and turn behavior, because I think this is the thing that's doing the weird slowing down, speeding up thing. Okay. So if the character's on the ground, then their H speed should become their facing direction times their walk speed. And we know that the walk speed is setting to the run speed because they do speed up. So every blah, 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 we do this. Image Xgo is... Just check that always run. Yeah, I mean... see how this works. There's got to be somewhere. Oh. Right, so mob damage. Nothing in mob damage is causing that slowdown. The jump doesn't have anything that would do it. And also mob jump is called at specific times. It's not like a regular thing. It's like a sub-function of the other functions. Oh, if this happens, then do a mob jump. Mob climbing jump. I mean, that only happens every 1 second. I'll put the basic regularity down just in case it's anything there. But I don't see anything to do with H speed in that one. So let's close that one. Mob smash block, I'm almost certain it's nothing to do with that, because we would see the mobs, if that was slowing him down somehow, then it would be happening as blocks were being smashed, because it wouldn't happen if it didn't have that output. Mob emote, we know when that happens because it goes okay, so I feel like it's got to be in here. I think maybe one thing I could do, it could be an artifact of the rest of the physics, like, because these are children of item parent, which is most of the things in the game which aren't a block are an item, which means they have the same physics kind of acting on them. Like the blocks don't have physics, but the items do. Like even the coins are items. So it might be something to do with that. There's some like dampening. So maybe I need to create some override for mobs where the item, certain bits of physics that are applied to an item are ignored if the thing is a mob, you know? So kind of the mob needs a ragdoll mode basically. I think that's what it is. I think there's some sort of like dampening happening. And what I can probably do, I'll just do a... Let's just do that for a moment and see what's happening. Just seeing what worker's saying. Is it not the H speed equals walk speed? I mean, that the thing is that should create a very consistent number, because walk speed is a fixed variable. All it does is changes to a higher number when they get that always run macro triggered. So yeah, it shouldn't be that. And because the image X scale is only 1 or -1. Okay, that's his... Okay, so you can see he's walking, stopping, walking, stopping, walking, stopping. So even when he's in normal walking mode, he's occasionally going to H speed 0. And I think that might be from the item physics script. So if I whack him now... Yeah, he's speeding up and slowing down. There's some dampening happening. Okay, so... What we can do is look into the item physics. I really didn't want to have to delve into this today because some of it is like... Well, a lot of it is stuff I didn't write and I don't understand it all. But maybe I'll understand it slightly better now. So what I need to do is find the horizontal dampening that happens on the item and exclude mobs from it. And that actually shouldn't be too hard. And what I would do is create a new... object get parent. There is a thing to check what the parent of an object is, but I can't find out what it is. Let me just... Game maker get parent. It is object get parent. Yeah. So we'll do that and we'll say... So I'm just going to check some of your theories out. But so this is turning at walls. H speed equals image scale times walk speed. Yeah, I mean, that should just... If his walk speed is set to 4, that should just produce 4 or -4. Because the image scale can't... The whole time we can see the image, it's not 0, right? If image scale was 0, it would mean that the thing is squished down to have no pixels. So 1 is facing right, and -1 is facing left. So H speed in this circumstance should always be 1 or -1 times the current walk speed. And the walk speed doesn't change. Let me just check. I'll do a search for walk speed and see if I'm doing anything weird to walk speed that I've forgotten about. So... it's always being set. There's no points at which it's being incremented or decremented. So I think what is happening, and let me just, I think what's happening is well, what I just described. It's to do with, the H speed being used in another, in the parent of the item parent, which is like the level up from a mob in the inheritance. So if I go in here and look at the physics here, there's probably going to be some kind of dampening. And what I probably should do is create like a, I guess I would call it ragdoll, or like a mode that a mob can be in where they are kind of gripping the floor or not, right? So this is the friction of being on the floor. So I think if this isn't going to be the ultimate fix, but it will let us see if this is the issue. Because that's where the floor friction is being applied. So what we should see now is the debug text will tell us his current walk speed, which will be 1 and then 2 when I hit him, I think. It's more than 1 when I hit him. I can't remember the exact number. And also... Oh. Oh, something about the macro I wrote is wrong. Okay, that's fine. We will fix that. Oh, I think that's not supposed to be a... Maybe it's that. So we're trying to check if either the current object or its parent is the underscore mob, which will eventually be called mob parent, but I'm calling it underscore mob because it makes it easier to debug spawn. There we go. So it's 1 and 1. It's still slowing down. Okay, so that didn't fix it. So that's not actually the issue. Something else is reducing the H speed. So let's go back to... Let's go back to the item parent. Just look in here. I'm going to leave that in though, because that still describes something that should be considered, is the fact that we don't care about friction if it's a character walking around. Just going to squish this down to make it easier to search. So this is where we smash things that you throw against walls. That's fun. This is what happens if something is hit by a force object. Probably not the best way of doing it. There's little force impulses that allow things to knock each other around. Maybe what I should do as well, because this could be catching me out, I need to go a little bit higher in the chain for diagnosing this, I guess. So I'm skip to stage. Nope. Stop. There we go. So let's see if isMob is actually returning as true for that character. Yeah, it's going up to 3 because the run speed is 3. It's supposed to go up to 3. But it's the issue is that it's decrementing from what it's supposed to be fixed at. Okay, let's see if it actually is triggering that isMob. So isMob is coming back as true. So isMob should do something. No! My meat friend. Meat friend, 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 meat friend. I whack you with a spoon. Okay, so isMob is... What happened there? The piece of meat was so heavy that it knocked the other one out. Why are you hanging out there, guy? My guy? I don't know why I keep using this search when I've got everything saved under favorites. Okay. What I'm going to do is just turn that line of code off for a minute and see what happens then. The problem is this script was written by someone else a long time ago, and I don't know how much of it works. So as soon as we get down to the bits that have deltas in and stuff, I'm like, I don't know what's happening here. It served me quite well so far, but yeah, we're definitely hitting that point where it's like, okay, this needs to do stuff it wasn't designed for now. Okay. That makes it work. It did go up to 6 at some point there for some reason. So I think we've accidentally diagnosed another problem, because when we saw them fly up in the air, I think what was happening was something was getting doubled at a strange time. But what is happening now is we've no longer got the friction decrementing the thing when it shouldn't. So the change I was trying to make to the item code to stop the friction happening was the right change, but it was done incorrectly because it wasn't working. So whatever check I'm doing with that macro to say, is this a mob, isn't registering there. And that's good. So that we fixed the core thing. We found another issue, which is that for some reason that 3 went up to a 6 at some point. And I'm not sure why, but that's, you know, another thing that we can solve in a minute. But I mean, as far as perceived behavior goes, this is pretty good. We've hit the character, or, you know, the character's been hurt by something in the environment, and now they're panicking and they're running around. And if we wanted to, we could have a countdown that says, okay, maybe we have like a fear variable, and it goes up really high, and then it ticks down, and when it ticks back down, then the always run turns off. You know, that could be good. But yeah, he's doing his thing. And if I whack him, he turns into a piece of meat, and then that eats the force thing from the... I think maybe actually I can quickly do something about that, because one thing I've noticed is lots of the time when something is spawning, it's moving away too quickly. Like you saw that example from earlier where I tried to hit the carrot out of the cauldron and it flew off. And while we're here, I may as well fix that. Because it's funny, but I don't, you know, it's not necessarily very player friendly. So if I just look for, so we just got like a very small window where newly spawned objects won't have that force applied to them. It's probably a good idea. Okay, so this is the bit we need to fix. And I think it might just be because I'm trying to use a not on a macro. So let's just go with the simplest theory first and test that. So if isMob is false, then do this, and otherwise ignore it. I mean, that's a kind of silly behavior you can see there, but those are things that are just fixed by changing variables, so we don't need to worry about that right now. It's got like no attack animation or anything, so maybe what I should do is So the smash block should have... Oh no, it does have a weight. So he's supposed to stop moving and wait for... Maybe I just need to make that base number higher. It's supposed to wait after smashing a block. Should have a default half a second wait after smashing blocks. But again, that's going to be something that most mobs won't be able to do. We just want that for special ones. And then what I'm going to try and build next is a behavior that makes them run towards or away from a particular thing. Why are you smashing blocks without waiting, buddy? You're supposed to be doing stop moving. Oh, I think... Okay, I'm going to change this to wait to move, just to make it clearer for later. So none of these scripts, which are smashing blocks, climbing jump, wander and turn, none of them should be happening if wait to move is above a number. So let me just go and check whether we've got any wait in here. Wait to move. Hey, rookie. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on here. Maybe... I don't think I can put that if there, but we'll just see. Oh no! The code that detects when you're falling out of the level doesn't work currently, which is funny. You just fall further. I'm tempted to be gentle with people with that and like record a last save face and sort of teleport you back to it, but I know that would be a complicated undertaking. It seems to be when they're together, they do that thing where they suddenly become really fast. Why do they only do it when they're next to each other? They don't do it on their own. What is it? What is causing that? Okay, we're a little bit closer to understanding that bug, I guess, because they're triggering each other to fly up in the air, which is fun. And then because they'd gone outside the culling zone, when I went back over there, they sort of spawned in and died, which is funny. Another big thing we're missing is I want to make a big deal out of it when Lem eats an item. Because currently you can only eat something when your health is below max, which is fine. But I kind of want to do a sort of zoom in and like throw the item in his mouth and do a big explosion and make it slightly different if it's a drink and that kind of stuff. Okay, what is happening there? Because I don't think they even have anything that detects other mobs. Oh, hang on. Is it something to do with this? So if I bump into a parent, into another item, and that item is going at a certain speed, and it can be projectile. I don't know how that is set. How is can be projectile used? Because maybe that's defaulted to true. Oh yeah, everything that can be picked up can be a projectile. Okay, will that work? It is funny behavior. I do like it. But, I think for the... I don't know. I think I have to do something like that. If with other... If is mob, then do that. Else, do all the stuff we were doing before. So this is the normal stuff that happens if we're hit by an item that's thrown at us. Right? If another item is thrown at us and it's got like a... It's got an absolute horizontal speed of more than 2, which means more than 2 or less than -2. Or it's got a vertical speed that means it's being dropped on our head. And it's a projectile, blah, blah, blah. All of these things are true. Then we're going to do this behavior where this character takes damage. But we'll do an early out if the other is a mob. So we'll do that. So if it's a mob, do nothing. Otherwise, do all the stuff we were doing before. Something like that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it shouldn't happen anymore. They'll only notice when they get hit by it's this character. You might recognize him from the old game, but I've turned him into a Skeleton King. Right, they no longer fly into each other now, I think. I've put a load of them down. They basically don't physically interact at all, which is what we want. Although, hang on. Something is happening. Well, sometimes they're going up to 2. Why are they going up to 2? Is that because after they jump, they retain some momentum? It's quite funny. Oh, that's what we need to do. Okay, so in the generic item code, the bit I did before, this bit, I do actually want the friction to apply, but only if they're going faster than their walk speed. So we'll do another else. So if it's not a mob, then do the normal friction. Else, if absolute H speed is greater than walk speed, then also do the friction. I think so. If it's a mob and we're basically going faster than we should be able to, then do the normal item friction. That's it. There's so much janky inheritance stuff, but I'm glad that you know, this is always just a process of like gradually proving to yourself that you understand it more than you think you do. Oh, I think I've. Oh, it's because it's called walk spud, not walk speed. Why write those E's? Maui said, do the customs all eat random things, or do they have particular things like based on creature type? So at the moment, there's sets of customers that like a particular type of thing, and customers could belong to two types. So yeah, there might be a character that likes all of the cheese items, and also all of the kind of sweet tooth items. That's how it's working at the moment. And then there are certain items that only one customer wants. So it picks the item first based on how deep you are into the game for like difficulty reasons. And then it picks characters based on that. And maybe eventually it will have a blacklist so it can't have two of the same character out at once. Because there will be quite a lot of those characters in this game because they don't take a long time for me to make. Oh, that's interesting. Not sure why that happened. I think it was because they collided on the first frame or something. Interesting. I think I caused a crash, but also I think that crash I just caused is unlikely to be something that would happen normally. Let's just see. So, bunch of mobs. See, now they jump, their H speed goes up to 2 because they need that additional bit of speed to be able to leap. But then they do get the friction applied and slow down. So, that's great. Thank you, debug text. Okay, something is happening here. Firefly? Firefly invulnerability not set before reading it. Oh, hang on. Script mob damage, line 26. Why would a Firefly isn't listed as a mob? I don't think. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? So that's something that's happening where the Firefly is bumping into us. That's very funny. I don't know what that's happened. The Fireflies are just like... They're just not even characters. They're just decorative items that can't really be interacted with. Right, this shouldn't be here either. Get rid of that. Oh, okay, so something here. Ah, I see. Okay. That's why. Oh, this is fiddly. I think what we need to do is what you said before. I put these in here so this actually passes properly as a single check. Go back to where I just was. And then change this, simplify this back to if other dot is mob. Maybe that will work. I don't know if it will. I don't think you can use a macro like that. No. Okay. There's got to be an easier way to do that. Yeah, maybe the fact that that's gone blue is just the thing not doing its thing properly. I don't know. Maybe that's just the the color coding not behaving the way it should. So the issue was happening was we were trying to do mob damage on the item that was hitting the mob rather than on the mob itself because it was still wrapped in that with other. Okay, can't be used as an instance variable. Okay. Okay, so I think we're going to have to do something like... awful, but I can't think of a better way to do it. No, I think all of this should happen, right? Because otherwise we reintroduce the problem we had earlier where they are changing each other's speeds by bumping into each other, which we shouldn't really have. Unless we wanted to have like, oh, the mob is doing a behavior to push the other mob, which we're not really at the stage of doing yet. So, I've got that wrong there. There we go. Just was missing that underscore. Okay. This is clunky as hell, but I can't think of a better way to do it without having to take what we put into the macro and rewrite it. So watch what happens when they collide with that. Yeah, they're not interacting with the glowworm anymore. Do that get where they're going? Arr! That's the protest emote triggering because they know they're stuck in a hole. Okay, cool. A symphony of meat. Okay, so I want to create a... We're going to try and test that behavior for the key now. We'll do all of the stuff for characters that are on the ground. So we want to be able to detect a particular object and try and sprint towards it. I don't think I want to do anything too fancy here. It's just like, oh, if this object is directly in line with me in this direction, I'm going to go towards it. So imagine that, well, I mean, I'll just do it now. This is our new monster, so we can, it's easier to imagine. Go to mob behaviors, and we're going to make a new function called run toward mob run at object. Okay, go we need some sort of I don't know. So say object because then what we could do is we could make this work for the gnome picking up treasure as well, which would be good. And then we need, maybe we have a cooldown on it. And we'll say that will be... The mount... Oh my... What do you mean the mount is it? What, have you got a fire, kinda? Dang. Yeah, sorry to hear that. Maybe we need to... So I think we need like some sort of turning cooldown so that characters won't do certain things. But I'll cross that bridge when we get to it, I guess. Um, and maybe we have it so if the cooldown is set to -1, then they trigger... I'll add this up here. So when we get to the end of the function, if the object direction is not 0, so if we found the object and we know which direction it's in, then we're going to set the h speed to the object direction times the character's run speed, which is run_spud. And then if cooldown equals -1, that's when we do always run. Maybe they should have a variable called crazed or something, which basically turns off all of the logical things after that point. Because in this example, where we've got a monster that they see a thing that they really want and they run at it, we might want them to like ignore other behaviors they could be doing then. But I think we just get the appearance of the behavior we want and then try and refine it after that. So we're going to check for the object. We've got a needs LOS thing to check if they need to, if they'll, see through blocks or not. And then if they see it, they'll set the direction to -1 or 1, depending on, whether they're whether it's visible or not. And then if it is visible, then they'll run at it. So we've got the beginning and end. We just need to work out the middle. Okay, so so we need to do a line check, I guess. Var ox. Var oy. From position of the character to x plus x distance. We're just doing straight lines for the moment. We put the object type in there. True. I think. Oh, I don't know if we need precise on. I guess it's probably slower, so we'll turn it off. And collision line. What does that return? returns the first result found. Yeah, that's fine because it'll be the first one. Okay, so we'll say var inst equals no one, and then we'll put instance in there, and then we'll say if instance isn't no one anymore, then ox equals instance.x oy equals instance.y. And then we'll do another to see if there's a block in the way. So if there's a collision line between our current position and ox, oy, and this time we're looking for object solid block parent. Var block equals no one. And put that there. And then we'll say if block is no one, then oh dear is the sign of x minus x. I think that's right. So sign just takes, you know, a number, and if it's positive, it makes it into +1, and if it's negative, it makes it into -1. I think that should work. I don't know. Pump that in a little bit, pump that in a little bit, and tidy that up a little bit. Okay. That shouldn't be there. Okay, so this only happens if we find the instance, so we're gonna tidy this up a little bit. So we only check for the block if we find the instance, otherwise we're wasting our time and we're probably going to crash it as well. So if we find the instance, we do all this stuff. If we don't find the instance, we don't worry about it. And then if we need a line of sight, then we check for the collision block. And then at the end, if there's no block in the way, or if we don't need the line of sight, then, I mean, that's not as neat as it could be, but it's better than it was. I'm happy with that for now. I don't want to overcomplicate it before I've seen if it works, because this is already... Okay, so we want to do... Kana said, when you started this project, how was your coding experience? I hadn't done much Game Maker since about 2010, I would say. I mean, it's the only engine I've really ever got on with, and I think that's partly because all of the language is incredibly specific to games. Whereas I think when you try and code in like Java or a C-based language or something, you're using a general computer engineering language for something else. And what something like GML does is it gets rid of a lot of the things that you have to translate twice. Because often in traditional languages, it's like things are just called things. And they're not called things that relate to things in games. And having a game specialist language can help with that. Maybe Godot's a bit similar in that sense of like everything is named something relating to games rather than software. And I find that makes things easier. But the main thing is just like being able to build all the art in here. I do occasionally do art on my tablet, but a lot of the smaller changes and stuff happen in the game engine, and I find that really, really pleasant to be able to do. Okay, we go back to the mob, and we're going to try this function out. So it's going to go under wait to move. I'm going to say mob run at object. I'm going to say object door, because that's reasonably plentiful. We're going to check 10 blocks ahead. We're going to say, first off, we're going to check we don't need the line of sight. And then we're going to give it a 3-second cooldown. Line 7. What have we done wrong on line 70? Oh. I think it's probably because I'm writing stupidly long, convoluted if statements, and writing and is going to take up a bit more space, and I have to scroll sideways more. But yeah, writing and doesn't even cross my mind a lot of the time. Oh. If needs like that's supposed to be that, isn't it? Yeah, okay, that's supposed to go like that. Bungled that. That should be it. I never had these problems before. People kept moaning at me to put double equals in my comparators. When I used to do everything with a single equals, this was a lot easier. Okay. So I'm going to put one up here first, so this shouldn't detect a door. Although there's one over there, so maybe it will. Hello, little eyeball. What's going on with you? Oh, there's a door over there. Are you going to detect it? You're going to detect that door and run at it? I mean, there could be some stuff with the... So I changed the sprite. Oh, hang on. That should be the X distance times the image X scale. Because otherwise it would only be checking for it to the left. Or to the right, sorry. Stop digging. That's not your job. You're not the digging guy. You're the freaking out towards a door guy. I mean, this would be good to make as a spider. Like a red key that's a spider. And it crawls along. So maybe we need like a target acquired variable that I can feed into my debug. So let's do that. Yeah, so I think you might be right. I mean, let's see, because if it's detecting the door, then we want to record that and put it in the debug, and then from there we can do other stuff. But it probably helps to have them record a target anyway, whether it's like a a spooky key looking for a door or a crow looking for a carrot or whatever we want to do. Probably helpful to Oh yeah, -4. That's what I want. I've detected a -4. Ah, my key meat. Okay, we'll go even further back and just say, okay, in here, just to make sure this is even running. I know this is slow, but one thing I'm kind of reasonably proud of myself is in the last couple of weeks, I've got much better at like getting debug text involved much earlier. And it's because I've been doing a lot more of this kind of stuff of like trying to genericize things. And it's just, yeah. I know it's helpful. I've been doing it long enough to know it's helpful. It's not an automatic part of the process. And I think that happens a lot when you're switching a lot between like code and content. You kind of forget these kind of good practices. Hello, I'm Dave. I'm a sentient key that crawls around with no legs. I guess it looks like a little lizard or a dragon, the red key. Maybe it should be more of a flying thing. I don't know. Okay, so Dave is never turning into inst. So something is going wrong along here. So collision line checks along a line for a collision with the given instances of the given object and or tile map, and returns the first thing found. So we're checking for _obj, which in the mob should be set to object_door, I think. Yep, it's definitely looking for a door. It's doing it 10 things away. It shouldn't care about and the cooldown doesn't do anything yet, so that shouldn't be doing anything. Yeah, I think making it look like a little evil dragon with wings on, and it's sort of like I would imagine it's sort of having a couple of different sprites for the key, and when it's hovering in one space it dangles down, and then when it's flying forward it sort of lifts up and goes like that. I think that would be quite cool. And then your sort of job is to, you can either leave it if you want more red rooms, or you're kind of whacking it out the way if you don't. And maybe it then becomes a wingless version and just sort of like crawls around on the floor. It's got a couple of hit states where it sort of loses its wings. I think actually it's quite a good test case for making a flying character, and then when you hit it, it stops flying. Okay, so it's not detecting the object. It's definitely being fed the correct object. Ah, Okay, so the xdist actually needs to be multiplied here. So here we go xdist equals x, because we're only feeding the number of whatever into it. And I'll do the same with this now, even though it doesn't really matter yet. Yeah, because I want to be able to feed the seconds number in as an argument rather than the frames number. That's what that is. So it could have just been the fact that it was only checking 5 pixels rather than 5 tiles, which is 5 times 24. Oh yeah, like a big mum dragon, and you beat it up and it drops the gold keys for the chests. That would be funny. Okay. Dave, 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 I'm going along. My name's Dave. I'm gonna fall down. Don't do that, Dave. You're not even looking in the right direction. Oh, oh, oh. He's doing his Dave thing. He's Daving out. Great. Okay. He's doing it. So the the function run at thing is doing what it should do. We need a way to check the line of sight code works. Maybe I'll come back to that later. So actually, let's instead of having a cooldown variable, we're going to have a frequency variable, which is a number of seconds. We'll do that every 3. And then we'll say frequency equals frequency seconds. And then we'll say if age modulo frequency equals 0, then do all this stuff. And then check that works, because that is quite a big change. And then what I probably want is for the other some of the other behaviors to turn off while we're in that state. And it's like, I guess that it's like a countdown on a state that's called something like, I don't know, seeking, or we basically want to turn off all of the more minor stuff. Or maybe it's like a priority thing. Maybe the behaviors need a priority. That would make it work, something like that. Oh. Oh yeah, I didn't fix it in the call here, so we'll do that every 3 seconds. Look for the object door, that's how far. That doesn't need line of sight, and then take the last one off. I mean, what I could do is some of the other things ignore, basically, you know, don't run if the character has what they think is a target. Because that would help us in this case, and it would help for like a bird swooping to get a carrot or something like that. So we want certain, we can simplify stuff by just using the do I have a target check. Okay, we've got that cooldown variable still there that we don't really want. Go back into mob behaviors and say, not destruction behaviors, mob behaviors. Okay. Macro has target, and that should be target not equals no one. And do another thing here to set target back to no one if it doesn't find anything. And then just for fun, we're going to make this mob do the behavior that we want the key to do, which is collide with the door and build a scary room. We're going to find Hungry Door and find out how that does it. Just make room. Don't know what that does. Or maybe it's set up here. Yeah. So maybe the way this would work, I'm going to do it in a messy way now. So we would need to like, yeah, we go with dot with other. I don't know if anyone in the chat is a Unity user and can answer, Nathan. I think it's hard to answer questions about like how long does it take to learn X, because I've spent a couple of days with Unity and a couple of days with Unreal, and I felt like in both cases it was so excruciatingly slow for me. But you're going to learn faster or slower depending on how you approach the thing as well. I think I generally learn better from having quite a simple existing project that I can open and pull apart and like see how things work. That's generally what works for me. Okay. So this guy, he's just going along. Just a little guy going along. He's going along. Oh, I forgot to get rid of the cooldown references. And maybe here we just actually go... No, I'll just leave that for now. I personally just don't want to, like, I'm happy to work on 3D games if someone else is doing things and I'm just doing certain things in the project. You know, I've done level design for 3D games, but the workflow of going from like something I've made into something that feels like a game with my own assets and stuff in a 3D workflow is so long and slow that I'm not don't feel motivated. I think that's kind of it for me. Is like I've always like I don't mind using assets and stuff, but I want to be able to do everything myself on some smaller projects, and I feel like particularly with Unreal, it's just like the sense of like, oh, I'd have to do so much to get this to a point where I can do everything myself is so big, right? Oh, it works. They do the thing. That's cool. Okay, so we can have a red key that has a special behavior that when it touches a door. And then yeah, the only thing is it's just they're not actually getting to the point where they hit the door because they're checking for collisions, and so we can make a magic red key and like run through the whole game spawning a million a million new doors. That's funny. Yeah, the great thing about this new system of spawning red rooms where they're not or rarely things you have in your deck is we can have much like weirder varieties of rooms, and some of them can be like really big and dangerous, and some of them can have lots of opportunity in them. This one, I mean, this is one I added before that choice, but it fits into the new design very, very well. So suddenly I've got to make a oh, that's weird. Suddenly I've got to make a big old climb up this big tower. Something crashed there. That was fun. Okay, let me just check that I haven't broken the doors normally. Yeah, that makes sense, kind of. I think like that's why people often just have unrealistic expectations of how quickly they'll make progress with the tool. And you've got like the language, and you've got the asset workflow, and then you've just got like learning the interface and where things are. And all of that, that's not unique to games. That's the same with editing software and music software and everything. It's like, it takes a while to just build up the recollection of where things are and keyboard shortcuts and all of that kind of stuff. Okay, so what we need now, if we wanted this mob behavior to work, is to be able to turn off the other stuff if it has a target. And I think maybe that should just be baked into some of the other things. Or we could say something like, so this should always happen. I'm trying to work out what to make generic and what not to make generic, basically, as well. So mob wander and turn is gonna not happen, and And then I probably got about half an hour or so, and I will do some hacky flying code, which I think we can do by just manipulating the grav of the object, and everything else should still work. Famous last words, but there's a variable called grav, and there's a good chance that we'll just do what we want. Okay, you. Gonna go for it. Okay, so yeah, it's not able to fully collide with it. So in this case, we would have to say, oh, I've broken some stuff here. We go down here. There we go. Oh, does that return the instance? Yes. And then just Aki flying code. If age 1 seconds 0 minus 0.1 0.1. That's weird, because this worked fine when it was in the collision code with the room. And now it's playing up. Yeah, sorry, I just wasn't talking for a while because I was thinking hard. I was thinking hard. Try that. If the door's not no one, then do this. The with door is still acting like it's happening in the mob, which is strange. I'm not sure what's happening there. So if we make the keys themed as dragons, we could even have a green dragon that opens a green room. And just let them do their thing. Mob side not set. With this happening at line 92, but that is happening in the with. Ah. 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 Why did I leave this down here? Okay. It's because oh, that was a big copy pasta error. Okay. Sneaky. Yeah, having several different types of key dragon that are just funny little keys with dragon wings, and they fly and make a room of that color, and you can... There we go. Right, it's doing stuff because I set the gravity to... If we put one here, it should automatically just make a door. It's not though, because that one's got... That's detected a thing. That's gone flying into it. It's not crashing anymore. Okay, cool. So I'll just turn off the hacky flying code for a moment. I think if we did the gravity bite through lerping, it would get us to something like flying very, very quickly. But we want to do that later on. So let's just comment that out for now. Okay, so... Oh no, there is already a skeleton key. I mean, there's a skull-themed key for something else. I really should stop the mining. It's quite off-putting. I'm like, why are you doing that? You're not a miner? And then they're like... Dang. So, we know we can get them to spawn the room. There's just something happening with the... I might have used the wrong collision check, to be fair. Yeah, I think that's what we're doing. I want to use those instead. So this just gives us a true/false. So I'll do if place, if there's a door in the right place, which is like in the block that we're facing. Right. Then set the door to be the instance in the place. And then if the door is a door, then we grab it and we do this stuff inside that object. And then we should also delete the key, right? I've broken it. Because I put an if there, so we'll do after that instance destroy self. Have like this evil laugh that I play in the background when things happen that aren't supposed to happen. It's just a generic ha ha ha. You know, like some evil wizard, some Sauron off screen is Sauroning you, you know? I think the Commodore and ZX Spectrum reference feels good. I mean, it started from a project that was one of those, and that's why we've got this entire overly small 25 pixel grid constraint on everything, because I actually started with someone's ZX Spectrum Dizzy Egg platformer template. This is the only platformer template I could find that had like carrying items above the head and wasn't like overly Twitch focused. Ah, okay, so that's doing good. That's doing good. So it detects the thing, flies into it, makes a new room. So we could have, I think having a red little dragon key is a good monster for this game. But we could also deliberately have like green dragon keys that open green nice rooms as well. And then I think we want it to happen a little bit sooner, so maybe something like that. I'm gonna hack the flying in and then see what I can do with making this look a little bit more dragony. And then after that we're in a good position to you know, take that bespoke code out and put it in a child of the thingy, of that object. Okay, so if flies and that grav equals lerp. Oh, hang on. Let's do changing direction. So every 3 seconds, we will say fly dir equals choose -1, 0, 1. And then we'll say do some stuff to the grav based on that. This might not work, but I'm just trying to see what the easiest way to achieve something is, and if that doesn't work, then I'll do something more complex later. Well, if we get some very basic flying behavior, then we're set up to make my crows and scarecrows. I want to have some like silly birds that maybe look like orbs or something. Okay, so we're gonna go from, we're gonna lerp the gravity from what it is toward fly dir times fly spud. And we'll do that every 10th of a second, and we'll do it 10% each time. So over a second, it should, well, no, that's not how lerps work, but it should be fast enough to do something visible and slow enough for it to like, oh, I've messed up my ands there. You're not doing anything, my lad. You're not doing anything. What have I done wrong there? So flies is true. Fly speed isn't very high. Maybe that's it. Maybe we make this a bigger number for now. See what happens. I have a feeling they're just going to whoosh straight up into the sky if I make that number closer to a whole number. I don't know. Oh, it made a green room this time. How lovely of it. Just check I haven't put the hacky flying code somewhere where it shouldn't be. It's not wrapped in anything else. Golden Dragon Key is a good idea. I mean, there's going to be a treasure room that is just a one-off gold room. So having that as another way to get it is quite cool. Maybe it's just not strong enough. I did some stuff with grav earlier, but I think maybe I just... don't have a good idea of where it's doing stuff. I mean... the item parent just takes it and uses it for stuff. So you can have a gravity for different things. Because, for example, the spinach leaf just has its own gravity. How does that work? Oh no, there I do it by just lerping the v-speed to what I want it to be. So I didn't actually use it there. Huh, that's interesting. I thought I'd used gravity, but I'm just doing when the leaf falls down, it just clamps the v-speed. So maybe that's all I need to do, really. Maybe the grav variable that I had in my items is not what we need to use here at all. And instead, we would just go, okay, we'll say if flies is true, then v-speed is clamped between so we're adding the direction of flight and the speed of flight together. We'll clamp the v-speed to be between those numbers and then change the fly direction regularly as well. Maybe that'll do it. And then just go back and change the variables. So fly speed can be 2. And that should mean that the flight doesn't override the normal item physics stuff that drives the mobs, but I'm not sure. I mean, if we can get like a generic... Yeah, that's a bit wonky, but that's not bad. I mean, it looks like something flying. It's just not... Doesn't feel great. So it's going to go over there. It's still basically doing all the normal walking stuff, and then also basically sort of ignoring gravity a little bit. So... maybe we do this bit through a lerp rather than a plus, so... we lerp the current v-speed between the v-speed and the v-speed, adding the flying modifiers on, and we do that a little bit each frame, and that should make it smoother, I think. We can do something really simple, like if it's hurt, it no longer flies. And then the dragon could just have two hit states, like one is with its wings, one is without its wings. And when it's hurt, you can like pick it up and still use it, but it can't like fly wherever it wants anymore. Okay, so... stop digging, that's not your job. Okay. If hurt, then flies equals false. Yeah, so if you've just come in late, this game has had some little creatures and mobs for a while, but they are all kind of like how games tend to be when you're in an early prototype phase. They tend to all just be like messy bits of bespoke code. And now I'm trying to make this set of like pieces of code that I can use like Lego bricks to make new mobs. So at the moment, this is just like a very wonky, okay, how can we do some basic flying that I could reuse for several different things, right? Huh, that made a new door there. That's weird. Okay. Oh, I think I know why that is. Let's make a big room and spawn a couple of them in there. I think the other thing I can do is I can just have this, you know, is flying state that items can have where they just ignore the falling down. So I think some of what's happening here is because of that. So if I whack one of these, they should stop flying. Yeah. And then it becomes like a normal moving object. If flies is true and flying is true, then do that. And then we go back to item parent and give items a state, which is usually false, called flying. We go back to our mob. And in this case, we'll say, so flies and flying are two different things because we might want to, we might want something that can take off and land. So in this case, when it's hurt, it says flies is false and flying is false. In this case, I just want like an enemy where its main hit points is, does it have wings? You whack it once, the wings are gone, and now it doesn't fly. But we might want different types of enemies that can do different stuff, or different types of creatures. Try not to think of them as enemies, because a lot of them do multiple use and aren't necessarily directly hostile. Okay, so now we go back to the generic item code and we look for the gravity stuff, which is going to be in here somewhere. That's the only place where gravity is mentioned, so I think that's it. I've already got a fix to wall check there, which that's what stops torches falling down. So when torches spawn on the wall of a room, you know, you can jump up and you can grab them, and then they're no longer fixed to the wall. And they can't be fixed to the wall again after that point. But when they're fixed to the wall, they just ignore the gravity code. Okay, so now we'd hopefully do the same with mobs, and that means that, oh, hang on. Just not doing anything. It's not doing anything. Ah, that's because we only want flying to ignore the gravity and not some of this, all of this other stuff. So we'll say here, we'll say if not flying, then we use gravity. If they're flying, then we ignore gravity and let them do their own thing. We'll just check that there's not anything else that we should be doing here, but I think that's the only place where gravity is applied. Okay. Worker said, did you always have a gift for narrating your thoughts, or did you have to learn it? I think I had to do it a little bit when I used to teach classes. But yeah, definitely had to pick it up. I think when I started doing these kind of streams where I'm working on my own thing rather than reviewing other people's games, I was initially anxious about that, but then I found that the thinking out loud actually makes me work better, so it's kind of win-win. Okay, that's a flying thing. Now the difference is that it won't do any of its normal movement code now, because that usually checks if it's in the on the ground, right? So what we can do to fix that, I think, is with, let's just check for on ground, which is one of our macro comparisons. So this one, that's to do a jump. We don't care about that one. That's to smash a block. So we could say if on ground or flying, right? Because if we have a mob that can fly and break stuff, then we want them to be able to do it when they're flying. If on ground and not held, so we want to say if on ground or flying, because at the moment it's not doing its wander and turn behavior, and we want it to do wander and turn. And then we want to look for the run towards door and make sure that's got the same stuff in place as well. Run object. Okay. So this one doesn't actually check if you're at the floor. So we'll do that here. If it's on ground or flying, then it can run at the door. So that should already, it's not perfect, and I have to finish for the day now, but I feel like we've made quite a lot of progress. So we've still got everything contained in this generic mob object. But what I'll do now is I'll make a child of that, and that will be the little dwarf. I'll make another child of it that will be the dragon key. And from there, I can recreate the bats that we had before. No, there's no actual attacking behavior yet, so the bats can't, like, bite you. But there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff in that little library of functions and stuff that we can use now. So we've got little flying guy. It's not as smooth as I'd like. I think that's just it's changing direction too often. That was cool. It broke the block under the diner, and then the diner left. So that's kind of not exactly what we want to happen in this instance with this mob, but it's good that our system can produce that behavior because we want that kind of thing to happen. You know, this isn't a combat game. We've got combat, we can beat stuff up, but we're mainly trying to stop the critters from wrecking our little kitchen. So if we can have creatures that do stuff like that, then it's great. Okay, so I think the problem with this prototype flying code is the direction is changing a little bit too much. The V speed is lerped between the V speed plus the flying direction plus the fly speed. See, that looked like it was changing more often than every 5 seconds. Thanks, KP. What's everyone else got planned for the rest of the afternoon? My son's getting home in a minute, and then I've got to pick my daughter up from school because it's the last day and school finishes early. Those pointless 2 days at the end of term where they're just like, the government says you must do this many days a year at school, so we cannot stop the school early, even though no one's going to learn anything. So now this is at a point where I would need to do some or debug text and say, okay, what's fly speed and fly dura right now? Because they look like they're doing something erratic, which shouldn't really be that erratic because we're using lerps. Wildfires is that common? Like wildfires in Wales? Is that a thing? Is that a global warming thing? The dragon in the mountains has been awoken by the ecological disaster, and the Wales kaiju is coming. So that's the direction that is going up, 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 down, down. Direction is changing very frequently, which is weird because it shouldn't be. Huh. Yeah, that's not great. So Wales is turning into Spain, basically. Was I just missing an if here? Was that why that was happening? That would be a classic blunder. You've made one of the classic blunders. Samantha's doing bedtime. Oof. Oof. Yeah, we're not going to do no bedtimes over the summer, but it's going to go up from like 9 till 10:30 or something. The logic being that there will be some days when we have to get up at a specific time, so... Oh. Okay, that's flying direction changing there. Changing to 1. Which means it should be trying to go downwards. Changing to -1. It's going upwards. Okay, cool. So yeah, I was very silly and I had that. So I think what the best thing to do here is actually have this choose event that chooses the new fly direction, and then make sure half of them are just setting it to itself so that it just doesn't change very often. And then have it run more frequently. And then we'll make this slower so we get a bit of a smooth curve when they change direction and stuff like that. Hopefully we'll get something a little bit more flight-like. And then what I'll do for the dragon key, is it will just sort of like tilt itself based on how fast it's going and which direction it's going, so it looks a little bit more alive. I think that'll be fun. Still leaving behind a piece of meat when it opens the door, which is funny. Being able to eventually like bounce off of the top of some characters would be good, maybe. I don't know. What are you doing? Don't do that. Excuse me? I mean, they're certainly flying. Maybe a little bit more of a bias towards flying downwards would be good. Hello! Come back! Yeah, the meat key is for some reason spawning the new doors slightly offset, but we've done lots of hacky stuff today and I didn't debug it, so it's going to happen. Okay. Bias this towards going downwards. And make the frame by frame change a little bit more subtle. And then I think we're done for now. Progress towards a generic mob system. I have some old mobs that were like there's a little bug that drops acid when you whack it, stuff like that. And those would be things I can go back and rebuild now because I've already got the assets for them. And I guess with flying mobs, I can give them a check where they're like, hey, if I'm this close to the ground, maybe don't do that. Maybe go higher. So that they won't do this. Because at the moment, they bias towards coming downwards so that they don't fly away from the player too far. But maybe that's not what we want. We want them to, like, come close to the ground, and then when you go near them, they fly away or whatever. But work that out nearer the time. And I imagine these guys as well, like, you wouldn't be able to pick them up unless you bashed their wings off, and then you could pick them up. I think that would make sense as well. Right. Thank you for dropping in today, guys, and for all of your questions and various bits of help and suggestions. I hope you have a good rest of the week. I am going to be on tomorrow doing Indies Under the Knife. I can't remember off the top of my head what it is. I'm so sorry. Just go and check out the Indie Game Clinic YouTube homepage for what the other streams are this week. There's an Indies Under the Knife on Wednesday and Friday. I may pop back on to do more of these little dev streams, although with the kids at home this week, that may be less likely. Maybe more next week. And yeah, go and check out the game on Steam if you haven't already. There is a Steam page up. You can go and wishlist it. thank you to everyone who has already done that. We've got like 100 wish lists in the first week of it being up live, which is great because it's a very bare bones Steam page. I think I did an okay job at the first pass of the description of the game, but it's, you know, it's got some old screenshots on there, and we're missing video, and we're missing like screenshots of the menus that don't exist and all of that kind of stuff. But I really appreciate everyone who's already done that, gone and added Golem Gourmet on the wish list. It's just a nice positive sign that people are interested. I know a proportion of that will just be people that just want to support, but it's still nice that people do the you know, expend the effort to do that in the first place. So thank you if you've done that. We will be trying to prepare for, we've got some layer issues here which I'll look at later. Trying to prepare for the next big public playtest in a couple of months time. We've done the first initial round of playtesting that helped us fix a few big UX issues, and the next one is gonna just, I don't know, be everything you can see here, with most of the bugs ironed out and some bigger parts of the game, like certain parts of progression not included, but it will still be something you can sit down with for, you know, a couple of hours and actually play as a game. It's just you'll be playing it for a place on a scoreboard rather than, you know, to grind and unlock various metagame things, which the game will eventually have, because I like unlocking things. It's a thing I like. But yeah, that's going to take, that other system is going to take a while to build. A lot of it's planned out in spreadsheets and everything, but it's going to require its own bespoke interface and everything like that. So yeah, thanks for joining today. Have a good day. Don't put a goat in a blender in the real world, and remember, you're only as fresh as your last meatball. Where did it go? I think it exploded when it hit the ground. And don't throw poo at people. It's unhygienic. Yeah, the previous itch version will stay up on itch as a historical document. But yeah, we're not gonna. And it's partly just because there's a lot of extra work involved in like ripping out the Steam features to make a separate build for itch. So we're just a little bit too far on to do that at the moment. See you later, folks.